I'm Steve and I make games. Last time I talked about going from talking about games to making one to not anymore, and now we're here. See, once I opened up my brain to the possibility of being an actual game designer and not just a YouTuber making game supplement merch, it in turn opened the floodgates for all sorts of house rules and other mechanical ideas to come pouring out. And a lot of those ideas revolved around superhero games. As some of you who watch me for years probably know, Mutants and Masterminds was my high school sweetheart game. The first game I ever ran, spent most of my time with, and while I initially loved it and was sure I would spend the rest of my life playing its brains out, eventually I grew out of the smitten kitten phase, and boom, the shine was off the apple and all the problems started to bubble up to the surface. And ever since then, I had been searching for a game, a superhero game, that could make me feel what I was looking to feel. Whatever the heck that was. Eventually, I came to the conclusion that I just have very specific ideas of what it means to be a superhero game, and just plain none of them really had that stuff. None of them actually felt like superhero games in the first place. There's just too much emphasis on combat. Even the more abstract, narrative-centric games. They all got too much of that D&D DNA in them. Because ultimately, Dungeons & Dragons, it's a combat game. Kill monsters, get stronger, so you can kill bigger monsters to get even more stronger, and so on. And it's very good at that gameplay loop. But the fact that it's so popular inevitably means it's going to result in a bunch of superhero games that at the end of the day are about killing monsters who wear spandex. Too much fighting, not enough saving. And that's a pretty important part of being a superhero. In Age of Ultron, Captain America stops punching robots to save a lady on a bridge. He isn't there to punch robots, okay? He's there to save bridge ladies. The robots are just in the way. A hero fights the bad guy because they're a hero and that's what heroes do. A superhero fights the bad guy because they're in the way. So, that's what I wanted to make. A superhero game that focused on saving people, where combat was merely one of several different means to that end. Civilian-centric, not super villain-centric. And like Stanley said, superhero games are fairy tales for adults, which I don't totally agree with, but it's good enough for me to move forward with. So, I worked on the games simultaneously, jumping from one to the other, which was great. If I ran into a problem with one, thinking about it through the lens of a different but similar enough genre could give me a new solution that still felt thematically relevant to both. I was kind of building similar but different game systems, but it couldn't last forever. I had to pick one. So, I know what you're thinking. I clearly picked the Supers game because as much as I've talked about it, that's where my true passion lay, right? Well, let's see here. According to my notes, the Fairy Tale game is more rigid and class-based, while the Supers game is more free and open and will be far less complicated and time-consuming to get right. Jesus, what is wrong with me? That is not how that turned out at all. Holy crap. Eventually, the two kind of similar game systems merged into one, and the free and open superhero game gained the more rigid classes of its older brother, at nearly double the amount. But by that time, I had spent so much time on it, and with so much of it developed, it just seemed like the best thing to do would be to grit my teeth and press forward with the cape stuff. So press forward with the cape stuff I did. So, how to make a game feel like a superhero game? Well, let's go back a bit. Back to before the joining. As I said in my last video, Dungeons & Dragons is a good place to start. It popularized the genre norms that numerous other games follow. That's why so many tabletop RPGs have a list of skills, abilities, whatevers, the list of the most common and important ways for the player to interact with that world. There's a number which indicates how good you are at doing the thing in general, which interacts with a random element like a die roll in some way, which determines how successful you are at doing said thing in this particular instance. So I started making a list of skills, abilities, whatevers that would be most important to my game, which at this point was my Dark Fairy Tale game. And because it's close enough to D&D in terms of surface level aesthetic, and I cut my teeth on 3.5 and Mutants and Masterminds and Edge of the Empire, it was hard not to have a whole mess of skills come pouring out my brain. And there was certainly some good here. I got it in my head that each ability should be derived from 2 of the 4 virtues, perhaps even the same virtue twice. I got really excited about this idea, especially when it came to the combat abilities. It's where I really began to see different characters' personalities being brought to life with their fighting style, because there can be so much character in the 4 heroic virtues. But at the time, I was sure I needed every single one of those and then some. I just couldn't figure out how to make all the virtues balanced enough. Does every virtue need to be a primary equal number of times with all the other virtues, and also it needs to be a second virtue as all the other virtues? There's too many to work all that out. It was annoying. I could have done it, but it was annoying. I desperately wanted to avoid that trap of having any one of the core stats being viewed as basically worthless mechanically when it has so much importance from a character expressing standpoint. Oh, don't waste your points on vision, man. You'll be able to mite your way through most of the stuff you come across. So, having hit a wall, hard, I moseyed on over to my superhero game, and something awesome happened. Not only did so many of these skills just not really have a place in the new genre, but there's rarely a cape equivalent version of these to begin with. And when I thought about superheroes doing superhero things, I mostly thought of big personalities clashing with each other in various challenges expressed through their actions. It's all very big and theatrical, and how they solved problems shows who they are as people. And that became more important to me than having a long list of skills, which was really something I was doing just because that's how I'd seen it done before. Your first instinct is often just someone else's last decision, after all, and a shorter list of skills, actions, whatevers would probably accomplish what I wanted to more efficiently anyway. At that point, it became so very easy to just brush what I had aside and start from scratch. And eventually, once I realized my Supers game could survive on the new short list I would build, it seemed far more clear that my Fairy Tail game could as well. I just needed to look at things from a different perspective to shake my brain free from the state it was locked in. But that's a video for a different day. So, 4 Virtues gives us 10 unique pairings. That's assuming order doesn't matter, which I desperately wanted it to, but again, video, day, different. The double Virtue builds were relatively easy to figure out. The ultimate demonstration of your outer strength, inner strength, self-control, and awareness of your surroundings. Though attack is too generically gamey sounding, since you're playing heroes, I thought maybe something less overtly violent, but still confrontational. Ooh, that's actually perfect. See, I wanted every action to be a clash between 2 opposing forces, so that works really well. And this went on nearly 2 weeks. Sometimes to come up with a new skill, I look at a list I put together of tasks superheroes tend to do, and see if I could put a few of those under one umbrella. Then, see what pair of virtues fit that concept. Let's see, trying to control the environment, so you need to be powerful with a strong awareness of your surroundings? Sure, why not? And sometimes I'd start from the opposite direction with the virtues themselves. We need something to fill this gap. Heart isn't really that active, it's hard to... Okay, what if I turn them around? Vision. The vision to see what can be, and the will to see it through. Create. And there we have it. The first bits of foundation for a game built from the ground up to be the first true, as far as I'm concerned, full superhero experience. See you next time.